Li Moying's gaze stopped at her lips that were now glossy, stained with traces of oil. His heart skipped a beat. Ah, how much he wanted to go over and lick them clean. However, he knew that the little fox would be angry, so he could only endure it. Murong and I saw Li Moying's affectionate gaze and felt a little embarrassed. Eating so crudely and chewing off such a big piece of meat. Such uneducated and uncouth way of eating really shows your upbringing. Even sitting directly on this dirty stone, talking while eating, you really are from the countryside. Murong and I could not bear looking at Huang Yueli's casual manner of eating, but she dared not say it out and could only scream out at her in her heart. After she finished eating, Huang Yueli drank some water and wiped her mouth clean as she prepared to head back into the tent to continue with her cultivation. But when her eyes casually swept the perimeter of the camp, she was stunned for a moment before her brows creased up. All these around here, this mess around the camp, who did it? She pointed to the various crystals that were arranged in different shapes at the edge of the campsite. Murong and I jumped in. What do you think you are calling a mess? This is the array laid out by yours truly. Array, do you even understand? Oh wait, you are but from a small backwater kingdom, so you must not have even seen one before. That is pretty common for you country bumpkins. Huang Yueli raised her head and looked at her. I'm from a backwater kingdom. Your senior brother came from the same kingdom as me. Does that mean that he is also a country bumpkin? Murong and I hesitated for a moment, as if a cat caught her tongue. After regaining back her calm, she said, Of course senior brother is different. You don't even know what an array looks like and you still don't want to admit that you are a country bumpkin. Of course I know that this is an array. Oh, come to think about it, you claim that you are an array master. This should be arranged by you. Murong and I lifted her chin smugly and proudly proclaimed, yes, I am a second-ranked array master. That's why I can arrange such a complicated array. With these arrays, the surrounding magical beasts won't approach us. She thought that once Huang Yueli heard that she was a second-rank array master, she would be extremely shocked and would in turn kowtow and admire her. Murong and I waited to see her envious gaze looking at her. Who knew? Huang Yueli only said in a barely discernible voice, Oh, it turns out, only a second-rank No wonder. Although the tone of her speech was very calm, however whoever had ears could make out the undisguised disdain in her tone. Not to mention the person in question. Murong and I immediately flared up in anger. Hey! What do you mean? Do you even know what a second-rank array master means? Huang Yueli couldn't even be bothered to look back at her. Of course I know what it means. It means that you can only arrange second-tier arrays. It's no wonder that this third-tier array is simply riddled with holes. It's really terrible. I'm beginning to doubt the authenticity of your claim. How did the Array Masters Guild even let you pass and gave you your accreditation? What do you mean? Murong and I jumped in anger. As a second-rank array master, I am able to lay a third-tier beast diversion array. This itself speaks of my strength. This shows that I am a rare genius. What would a country bumpkin like you know? I don't even think you know about the 7 elements of the array and you still dare to turn your finger around and slander me. Slander? Huang Yueli sneered. Based on this, you dare to even call it a beast diversion array. I think it's more like a beast magnet array. Let's see you kill us all later. How fun would that be? I will kill you all. If you don't know anything then shut up. This is pure defamation. Murong and I was extremely infuriated. You can also listen on. When Li Moying heard Murong Ni's words were getting more and more presumptuous, he wrinkled his brows and his gaze turned cold. Although he did not interrupt them, however the surrounding atmosphere seemed to have dipped. Murong and I was startled for a moment as she sneaked a glance at him. She was instantly reminded of the day's matter of having almost being sent back, and she did not dare continue on the banter any further but instead started staring at Huang Yueli begrudgingly. Humph. Although senior brother is on your side, I'm not going to bicker with you any further. However, I am the array master here. If you continue to insult my work, I will not be nice anymore. Huang Yueli couldn't even be bothered with her. She started walking along the perimeter of the camp and studied the array that Murong and I had laid out. She then bent down and picked up a crystal and tossed it aside. Hey! What are you doing? You dare to break my array? Murong and I's eyes flared wide open. Never would she have imagined that not only did this country bumpkin actually insult her skills, she even went a step further and touched it. She was so mad that she almost forgot to stop her. Immediately after, she dashed over to stop her. But alas, Huang Yueli was too fast. By this time, she had already tossed aside several crystals and had removed a few patterns. Murong and I yelled loudly, "What the hell are you doing? Stop! You hear me? Move aside. This is the array that I had painstakingly laid out, you're ruining everything. If a huge drove of magical beasts come and attack us later at night, are you able to bear that responsibility? Your cultivation is already so poor, you're already dragging our hind legs and now you're even adding on our burden of creating extra trouble. Senior brother. You're just going to stand aside and let her continue to put everyone in harm's way." When Huang Yueli heard Murong and I mention Li Moying, her hands froze for a moment as she turned her head to glance at the man who had remained silent this entire time. "Li Moying, do you also think that I am putting everyone in danger?" A gentle smile blossomed on his face as he looked at her in deep faith. "Of course I believe in you, whatever you want to do, just do it." When Huang Yueli heard the reply she was very satisfied with, she unknowingly rewarded that man with a huge smile before she lowered her head down and continued fiddling with the array. This time, Murong and I truly believed that her senior brother had been bewitched. What potion that fox demonis give him? How was it that whatever she said, senior brother would believe her unconditionally? He even let her break the array that she had painstakingly laid out. Murong and I was feeling very anxious at the moment and was just about to rush over to stop that damn girl. However, Luo Jiyun was faster as he took one step forward and blocked her way. Murong and I huffed angrily, "Fifth brother, why have you been at odds with me the entire day? Move aside quickly. If the array is really broken by that damn girl who does not know death, we'll be meeting with droves of magical beasts tonight. This zone here is where the magical beasts like to prowl at night." Luo Jiyun shook his head and sighed. When a woman becomes jealous, they lose all their rationality. Moreover, towards their rival in love, no matter what, everything would always look unfavorable in their eyes, completely overlooking the point of being objective. Looking at how this junior sister of his was usually very clever, how did she regress to such a state today? With one look, one could already determine that the sister-in-law that senior brother had brought along was very intelligent and had a good disposition. She wouldn't speak without thinking things through. Moreover, his senior brother was not someone that would lose all rationality when he saw a beautiful woman. Since he trusts sister-in-law so much, it should be because she had proven her strength and vision before. Since she had determined that something was wrong with the array, it proves that she had seen areas where there were problems. There was also something that he had just noticed. Murong and I had never said before how many tier her array was, but his sister-in-law had just glanced casually and had already proclaimed it to be a 3rd-tier array. You can also listen on. With regards to her conviction, Huang Yueli definitely had something in her arsenal that made her so confident. Everyone else who was present understood this, only Murong and I who had been blinded by her jealousy did not allow Huang Yueli to finish her words. Luo Jiyun asked, "Sister-in-law, after hearing your words, you seem to be an expert in this field. Are you also an array master?" When Murong and I heard his words, Murong and I was stunned momentarily and raised her head. Fifth brother, what kind of joke is that? That's really too hilarious. Array master. Her. Fifth brother must have a problem with his brains. That fox demoness, how could she be an array master? She's just a country bumpkin and most probably, this was the first array that she had seen in her entire life. However, Huang Yueli nodded casually and replied, well, I guess I can be considered one. As she spoke, the movements of her hands had not stopped and she was busy fixing the array. Murong and I froze for a moment before she left out a pft and started laughing out loud. Do you even know what you're talking about? You, an array master. Moreover, there's a clear distinction, either one is one or one isn't. What's this considered to be one? There's no need to try to act mysterious to this extent. Murong and I scoffed at her disdainfully. She was beaming widely, she felt elated that she had finally caught that fox demoness tail. She had already known, how could her senior brother fancy this kind of country bumpkin? It turned out that she had been blatantly running her mouth off like that and had fooled him. It was just right, today she had met a real array master, she had to tear that fake facade off. Murong and I was already gloating and smiled for a long time before she said, Yuli, I know that you are jealous of my talent and cultivation, on top of that, I am also an array master. However, that doesn't give you the right to be so shameless and lie your way through. Do you seriously think that an array master arranges an array just by fiddling about a few crystals? There are various calculations involved, not only that, it involves careful planning that has many depths which has to abide by myriads of elemental laws. A strong mental fortitude is needed, definitely it's not something that a country bumpkin like you who has some frivolous thoughts can understand. Huang Yueli looked at her coldly, as if looking at a fool. It turns out that you do know that an array is not just simply arranging crystals to your whim, however, the array that you've laid out today shows that it's been frivolously laid out. Murong and I blinked, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I must say, your act is pretty realistic. Can you stop with all your nonsense? It's almost dark and when the magical beast starts to roam at night, everyone would have been harmed by you. Luo Jiyun hurriedly pulled Murong and I back. Can't you speak less? He ignored the protests of Murong and I and politely asked Huang Yueli. Sister-in-law, this junior brother here doesn't quite understand. Can you please advise why do you say that you can be considered an array master? This statement did arouse the curiosity of many as it was quite strange. It's no wonder Luo Jiyun had brought it up as well. In actual fact, she had not been recognized by the Array Masters Guild because her speciality wasn't in arrays but rather armaments. However, in order to engrave arrays on her armaments, she had spent a lot of effort studying it. Her arduous passion had brought her quite ahead in this field. If she had went to get herself accredited, she would be at least a rank 7 array master. However, her main reason for studying the array was solely for her armaments, hence, it had never crossed her mind to get herself accredited. That was why she was modest and mentioned that she could be considered one, as she had never been to get herself accredited, so technically she wasn't really one. However, these couldn't be mentioned. You can also listen on. She avoided answering the entire truth, just divulging part of it. It's because I've never gone to get my rank graded before. Oh. So that's why. Luo Jiyun wiped off the bead of cold sweat from his forehead. When he heard her reply, he blushed a little. Did his sister-in-law know how difficult was it to pass the exams to be recognized as an array master? An array master's apprentice that hasn't been graded would never know the gap between himself and the real array master. Murong and I sneered immediately. If you've not yet been graded, you still dare to say that you are an array master. I know, you must have arbitrarily read a few books about arrays and think that you are one already. Luo Jiyun quickly held her back once again. Even if he was a little shaken now, he would still not let Murong and I go on so unbridled without any pleasantries at all. Even if he did not fully believe in his sister-in-law, he would still leave some face for her. Hence, Luo Jiyun still humbly asked that, sister-in-law, after looking at junior sister's array, can you kindly advise where the problem lies? Why would you say that it is not a beast diversion array but a beast magnet array instead? Hearing his question, Murong and I did not speak any further as she pricked her ears up, anticipating what bold words that fox demoness would exaggerate with. She couldn't wait for her to catch her tail and she'd turn the tides on her, exposing all her lies in front of everyone. Huang Yueli replied indifferently, the main essence of an array is to use patterns to tap into the bountiful energies of heaven and earth to support it, and according to the patterns of the array, these energies are drawn into it, thereby harnessing these streams' energy as they seamlessly meld into the array. By placing crystals in the array, these boosts the effects and abilities. That's why both crystals and array patterns are all very important. Isn't that all gibberish? Whichever book on arrays would have all these contents on the introduction page. Murong and I couldn't hold in her snigger. Huang Yueli ignored her completely and continued speaking. Some less diligent low-leveled array masters have a misconception and think that the crystals and materials are the most important. They presume that the higher-ranked materials and crystals, the better. However, the truth is contrary to that belief. There's one notion that they had missed out. No matter what, the materials and crystals must never exceed the rank of the array master nor exceed the main nature of the array, or else. Not only would it be unable to release its efficiency to its fullest, sometimes, it may even backfire on them and create an opposite effect. Ha ha ha, how interesting. Don't tell me you are saying that the lower the grade of the crystals, the higher the efficiency of the array is. Where did you even hear about such a hilarious theory? If that's the case, we just need to use tier 1 crystals to lay the entire array and it'll be super powerful, right? Murong and I was taunting her with glee. Huang Yueli only smiled back, she didn't want to waste her breath on such a foolish girl. Luo Jiyun listened with interest and he heard her underlying profoundness in her speech. Sister-in-law, you mean that? It's very deep, I am not able to understand it very well. Huang Yueli laughed and explained further, alright, then I shall use the so-called beast diversion array that Miss Murong here claimed, as an example. She waved her hand, drawing their attention as she pointed to the remaining array that had not been touched. This beast diversion array is a second-tier array. It is one of the most common arrays that most array books would have in them, and it is also the most used array around. If Miss Murong had been diligent and followed the book closely, using second-tiered materials and crystals to lay it out, it definitely would be able to do what it's supposed to do and protect us well by hiding our breaths. But who knew? Our Miss Murong here likes to think that she is especially clever. Who do you think you are? What are you implying? Murong and I hopped in anger as she yelled out. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli did not hold back and directly said, I am talking about you. Can you explain why do you not follow the books which have been clearly written in black and white? Why do you insist on using third-tier crystals and materials to replace the original stated materials? It seems like you've really read a few books. Murong and I sneered and said, but what's the use of just reading? You need practical experience as well. A real array needs to depend on the situation. Those beast diversion arrays that are written in the books are only tier 2 and can only work against those magical beasts that are ranked second tier and below. With my ingenious array laid out using tier 3 materials, it's able to enhance its effects and work against third-tier magical beasts. This is called changing according to the situation. One has to be pragmatic and flexible, do you understand? But then again, I don't think you do. Huang Yueli laughed out loud. I really have no idea how does an ignorant fool's brain work. What did you say? Huang Yueli scoffed, ignorant fool. What's worse, one that even likes to act smart. Whoever told you that if the materials are higher a grade, its enhancement would also increase by a tier? Let's put it another way. A Beast Diversion Array is a Tier 2 array because it uses Tier 2 materials and crystals, and hence it can draw out the maximum efficiency. It is because, if you use a higher grade material, it would draw in more heaven and earth profound chi, and this would in turn easily draw the attention of those magical beasts whose 5 senses are very sensitive. This way, this defeats the purpose of concealment of the array itself. Using third-tier materials already exceeds the limit of the array, and it would arouse the attention of the magical beasts, attracting them to come and snatch the crystals to absorb the energy. That is why, this array is not only not a beast diversion array, it might bring misfortune and attract even stronger beasts over. When they heard her words, Luo Jiyun and the other guards fell into deep contemplation. Only Murong and I, who seemed like a cat who had stepped on its own tail, retorted back in anger, "What nonsense are you sprouting again? A mere wannabe who hasn't even attained any accreditation from the Array Masters Guild dare to run your mouth off like this against a second-rank Array Master. Let me tell you, the arrays that I've laid out never had any problems before." Huang Yueli shrugged, "Well, if you don't believe me then forget it. No matter what, there's no way I will sleep within the compounds of such a dangerous array. Since you like to stay here and wait for the magical beasts to attack you, please go ahead. I won't be accompanying you." A glint of joy flashed by Murong Ni's eyes as she laughed. "That's just perfect. You don't have to sleep in it, anyway. I don't like you staying within the array I laid out. Please move out and stay out. When the magical beasts come and attack you, you can't blame anyone else since you asked for it." Murong and I felt that when that damn girl heard these words, she would be afraid and immediately apologize to her and even beg her to let her stay. No matter what, Dark Moon Forest at night was fraught with dangers, and with such a weak cultivation and had no protection of any arrays, she wouldn't be able to live to see the sunrise the very next day. As long as anyone with a sound mind would understand that if they were to continue to put up a false bravado, they might even lose their little life. However, Murong and I had stared at Huang Yueli for a long time, yet that girl only smiled happily and nodded her head in agreement. "Very good. My thoughts exactly. I'll sleep in my area, you sleep in yours, we have nothing to do with each other. If magical beasts attack later at night, no one is to seek help from each other." Murong and I sneered, agreed. "Don't regret it. This fox demoness was really seeking death. That was just great." She was initially still worried that she had no way to get rid of this pest, but who knew, she had went on her own accord on the path towards death. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli clapped her hands and immediately agreed, "No problem." Immediately after, she turned and went back to the tent she was in previously. Li Moying followed her closely and entered the tent as well. Huang Yueli turned and looked at him and raised her eyebrows. "Dear esteemed senior brother, why are you following me? Isn't your darling junior sister a second-ranked array master? Why don't you follow her? Aren't you afraid that we'd be surrounded by magical beasts if you stayed with me?" He had just taken a step in and flipped the cloth flap down. Immediately after, he reached out, hooked her waist and brought her into an embrace. He lowered his head and sealed her lips. His little fox doesn't eat very cleanly, look here, there's still some taste of the barbecued meat from earlier." Only after a long while later did he raise his head and look at the little fox's red face, and he stuck out his tongue to lick her lips one more time before he looked satisfied. "Tastes good," he said with a smirk. Smoke almost rose from the top of her head. This man was too much. She had already warned him up 10 times that he was not allowed to kiss her. It's obvious he had not listened to the words she said. Moreover, his tongue was really too mischievous. As a man, he was too shameless to sell himself using his charm. "Oh, Huang Yueli rubbed her lips vigorously with the back of her hand and scolded, "Perverted pig." Li Moying was not the least bit daunted and still spoke very gently, "I am your fiancé, of course I will stay together with you. Also, I trust that whatever you do have a reason behind and you will never harm me." Well, at least, she still likes to listen to his honeyed words. Huang Yueli removed her gaze and looked afar as she laughed lightly. "However, it seems that your junior sister doesn't think so." "Well, that girl has been spoiled since young, leave her be, let her be taught a lesson." Li Moying's eyes were cold when he said this. The two of them had finished discussing and came out of the tent. Huang Yueli drew a circle on the ground and began to lay her array. Murong and I looked at her from afar and her gaze was filled with ridicule. If one wishes to be an array master, not to even mention a first-degree realm cultivator, only those who were at least at the third-degree realm could try because the demand for mental fortitude was extremely high. For the average person, if they were at the fifth-degree realm, they could only barely lay out a first-tier array. Looking at this devious fox, she only had the cultivation of the first realm and she actually wants to lay out a beast diversion array. This was simply an impossible task. Under the gaze of everyone, she paced around her chosen area silently and she circled it, deep in thought as she started fervently calculating and drawing it out in her heart. After a few moments, she raised her head and asked Li Moying, "I don't have the materials needed for the array. You've already promised to supply me the materials just now, so you can take them out now." He nodded his head gently. Murong and I couldn't bear it any longer and interjected, "I have to say, Miss Yu, you're starting to lay out your array already. You've already calculated the direction of the chi pathways of the array pattern." Huang Yueli simply replied with "mm." Murong and I let out a contemptuous laugh as she retorted, "Miss Yu, have you ever thought that you have oversimplified the entire process of laying an array? Do you think that deducing all these is akin to a 3-year-old's arithmetic problem? Just simply using your fingers and count. You didn't even bring with you an array board and you still have the cheek to call yourself an array master. To lay an array, there was a need to link up with the heaven and earth profound chi. There was also a need to take into consideration other factors that may influence it such as environment, people, direction and weather. Before laying one out, there was a huge amount of calculations to be made and to deduce one before drawing it out was the most important step. As they say, a tiny lapse can lead to a huge mistake. If there was a slightest error in calculation, it would be devastating. You can also listen on. For the majority of people, these deductions weren't possible to complete just based on mental calculations. However, if an array master goes around with a huge stack of paper filled with complex formulas, it would still be detrimental to the image of an array master. Hence, they came out with a unique tool solely used for calculating all the different aspects, the array board. With the help of an array board, array masters are able to complete all the deductions, covering the most important step. Moreover, even with the assistance of an array board, an array master still needs at least an hour to fully link up all the information and complete the calculations of a simple array. For an array of a higher tier or a more complex array, it was not unusual to spend a few days and nights. However, what just happened? She didn't even have an array board with her and just by standing there for a short while, the time taken was not even enough to drink a cup of tea, she declared that she had already finished her preparations. Who was she bluffing? It was obvious that she didn't know how to calculate, she was just standing there to put up a show only. Murong and I sneered in her heart, even more convinced that Huang Yueli had no idea about arrays at all. If that was the case, seeing her make a fool out of herself would be worthwhile. Li Moying replied gently, "What materials do you need?" Huang Yueli immediately set out a long list of materials, scarred striped rainflower stone, golden green jade, blood of an ice attribute magical beast, also the crystals of the wind, earth and water elements. These were all very common materials and were all available within his interspatial ring. With a flip of his hand, he retrieved all the mentioned materials. However, on the other side, Murongni's eyes almost fell out as she gaped in astonishment. She then cried out, "Wait a minute, these are all third-tier array materials." Huang Yueli raised her eyebrows. "And what business is that of yours?" Murong and I laughed out. "What do you mean, what business is that of mine?" Just now, who was it that said that a beast diversion array was a second-tier array, and if it's raised to a third tier, it cannot confine the chi and it would in turn attract magical beasts? Then how about yourself? You are using third-tier materials to lay an array. Aren't you just slapping your own mouth? Huang Yueli's hand movement paused for a moment, turned around and smiled in a condescending manner. "I said to only use second-tier materials because your cultivation is too low and your skills in array formation is too lacking. You have no means to control a third-tier array, so it would result in that kind of situation. But of course, in such a large world, it's impossible for everyone to perform as badly as you. That's why there are also third-tier beast diversion arrays that have been strengthened and reinforced. Do you now understand? Did you just say that my skills are bad and lacking? Are you completely blind? A 16-year-old array master, in the entire South Sky region, there are only a few." Murong and I felt insulted. She was a genius. That blind ignorant fox demoness. Here she was, a genius second-tier array master, yet that fox demoness did not recognize her all. However, Huang Yueli did not bother any further and continued laying her array with the various materials in hand. Her speed was very fast. More surprisingly, the materials and crystals used was only a fifth that array masters usually used. At the same time, Murong and I also fixed up her original array. 2 arrays were completed, and between the two, there was a huge contrast. Murongni's array was filled a large variety of colorful crystals, and the entire array looked very complicated and intricate. With one glance, one could tell that it was carefully laid out. On the other side, it looked very pitiful, and it looked like a few crystals were barely scraped together and the distance between each was very far. There were only a few array patterns and they were all small and sparsely located. The entire array looked extremely unremarkable. If one didn't know beforehand, who could think that this was even an array? Murong and I did not come over to find any fault this time round, because after seeing the array paid out by Huang Yueli, she had already determined in her heart that the fox demoness who had seduced her senior brother was a utter and complete fool. You can also listen on. If she, a high and esteemed array master, were to quarrel with the ignorant fool, it was really too degrading. Huang Yueli looked at the array that she had completed and nodded in satisfaction. She turned back and asked, "All right, it's done. So, Li Moying, other than you, who else would like to stay on my side?" Li Moying's eyes were smiling and he snuck up beside her and whispered into her ears, "Why are you still asking others? I still thought that you had wanted to live with me alone, a world with just the two of us. We can kiss and cuddle. As for the others, just let them stay outside." Huang Yueli could not help but flared at him. "Oh please. The sky is almost dark, stop talking nonsense." When Li Moying turned to face the rest, his face was no longer gentle and affectionate. It was one with the usual indifference. "Everyone choose your own camp, I'm not going to force anyone. The choice is yours." Although he said that he would not force anyone, but Moe, Mo Air and Mo San were all his subordinates and they naturally did not hesitate to walk over to his side. The 3 of them immediately tore down the previous tent that they had built and went over to Huang Yueli's side to rebuild them. Murong and I looked at the degree that Li Moying was indulging Huang Yueli and she was teething mad with jealousy. Li Moying did not even bother to cast her a single glance. He had placed all his attention solely on Huang Yueli. Has senior brother been blinded? He doesn't even care about safety anymore, What kind of bewitching soup did that fox demoness feed him? Murong was fuming mad as she turned her head around. To her horror, she found that even Luo Jiyun was hesitant, apprehensive and was looking at the opposite camp longingly. This time Murong really wanted to scream out in frustration. Fifth brother. Where are you looking at? Don't tell me that even you do not believe in my array and want to go over to that fox demoness side. It makes me wonder who is your real junior sister. Humph. Oh, Luo Jiyun was tongue-tied. For a moment there, he really wanted to follow his senior brother. Although he don't know anything about arrays, however. Just looking at the calm and confident look on sister-in-law's face was much more reassuring than Murong's self-overpraised one. However, since Murong had already opened her mouth and asked in such a manner, he was embarrassed and awkwardly went back to her side. After all, she was his junior sister, and if she was left all alone here, what if she really fell into danger? As the sex disciple with the best temper, he was a good man and it was impossible for him to leave her alone. Don't be angry, junior sister, I'm not going anywhere. I believe in your array, I'm going to stay here with you. That's more like it. You have a good vision. Finally, with a supporter on her side, Murong's face eased up a bit. Otherwise, it would have been completely trampled to the ground by Huang Yueli. There were a total of 3 tents, since there were more people on Huang Yueli's side, 2 were moved over. Once the tents had been set up, everyone moved into the core of the array. At this moment, it was the final step of completing the array, activation of the array. Murong first triggered her own array with a few moves. The crystals in the entire array gave off a dazzling light as energy was drawn in from the surroundings. All the lines of the array pattern lit up in unison, forming a complex and beautiful array as it enveloped the boundaries she had cast. After she finished, she lifted her head up arrogantly and looked at Huang Yueli. Since Murong was in the array, she could now no longer hear any sound transmitted from outside the array. However, her glance was filled with meaning. It was obviously one filled with taunt, declaring that Huang Yueli's one might not even be able to be activated at all. You can also listen on. After all, an array made up of so little materials was simply unheard of. Huang Yueli smiled and asked everyone to step in. Her fingers gently tapped the crystal that lay in the array's core and it started to absorb the chi of heaven and earth, as a dim light started to run across the entire array and all the lines across the array emitted a faint glow. Against the dazzling and flamboyant display from Murong's array, Huang Yueli's array paled in comparison. Only a wisp of blue light dimly flashed by. If one did not look closely, it wouldn't even be visible. And it was precisely just this dim blue light that flashed by so quickly that as soon as the entire array had lit up, when all the array patterns had been connected, the blue light faded away into the darkness completely. Murong laughed when she saw this. Ha ha ha, fifth brother, look at that Yuli's array. It's too hilarious. Let's not mention how dim the light was, but in just a flash, it had been snuffed out. What do you think happened? Something went wrong. It broke down halfway. To think that there's even such a joke happening. Ha ha ha. Luo Jiyun just smiled wryly. Indeed, as Murong had pointed out, it seemed that sister-in-law's array seemed a little unreliable. The arrays that he had seen thus far all had resplendent lights, and usually the more dazzling the lights were when the arrays were activated, the greater the power. Sister-in-law's one seemed a little defective. He started to worry for his senior brother. It seems that tonight, he had to pay special attention to the other side. If there's any trouble, he could still go over and lend a hand. Luo Jiyun said with determination, "Head in and rest first, I will keep watch." Although they were protected in an array, however, they were spending the night in Dark Moon Forest, and there might always be a risk in such a dangerous place, so there was still a need for someone to keep watch. Moreover, they only had one tent. No matter what, a lone man and woman living together would not be good. In addition, Luo Jiyun was also worried for his senior brother, so he took the initiative to keep watch. Murong and I had no objection and went into the tent to rest. Luo Jiyun sat in front of the tent and looked across and found the situation to be a little wrong. In that camp, it seems that there was no one keeping watch at all. Initially, he thought that he might have been wrong and rubbed his eyes, blinked them a few times. However, there was no change. 2 tents stood there without anyone outside to keep night vigil. He immediately stood up. "You've got to be kidding." The whole group of them stayed in such an unreliable array, without knowing if it is even working. They actually did not even send anyone to guard. Even if senior brother trusts sister-in-law, what about Moe, Mo Air and Mo San? They were actually at such ease that they didn't even need to keep guard and went in to sleep with such ease. This shouldn't be what a subordinate should do. However, no matter how restless he was, he had no means to go across to the other side. Once an array had been activated, there wasn't a way out unless the array master deactivates it or if it's been forcefully broken from the outside. The sky grew darker and darker. Once night fell on Dark Moon Forest, there were a lot of movements as magical beasts started to prowl the lands looking for prey. Luo Jiyun was the only person in the entire party of 7 that didn't sleep and had no notions to sleep. He felt that he was playing the role of a mother, worrying for each and every one of them. He sat within the array and had seen quite a few magical beasts walk by, but they were all low-grade beasts, all first- or second-tiered magical beasts whose prowess were relatively low. You can also listen on. As it got deeper into the night, very soon it was the time where the magical beasts were most active. More and more magical beasts were seen roaming in the vicinity of the camp. Suddenly, Luo Jiyun felt a cold chill run down his spine and he immediately sat up straight, his gaze searching for that ominous feeling, eventually locked onto the trees that were not far off on the left side. In the dark forest, a pair of predatory eyes were looking straight in the direction where the 2 camps were. That pair of eyes reflected a green hue and within it was a distinct glint of ferociousness and savageness that was chilling to the bone. Luo Jiyun had also quite a bit of experience and he had very quickly recognized that those eyes belonged to an extremely powerful magical beast that was well known in the Dark Moon Forest, the Iron Claw Silver Wolf. The Iron Claw Silver Wolf was a 4th-tier magical beast, but its prowess was equivalent to a cultivator of the 5th realm. What's more, the Iron Claw Silver Wolf was very powerful amongst the 4th-tier magical beasts. It has dual attributes of gold and wind. Not only was it fast, it had claws that were extremely strong and sharp. Even with a 5th realm cultivator's own profound chi protecting themselves, in front of such claws were akin to a tearing a flimsy piece of paper. No one knew how many 5th realm cultivators had fallen prey to these claws. However, these were not the main reason that people feared the Iron Claw Silver Wolf most. Luo Jiyun saw the beautiful silver fur emerge from behind the trees and a lone wolf strode out. It emitted a menacing aura as it raised its head towards the moon and let out a long howl. There was a rustling sound from all over as the surroundings stirred. Another 5 Iron Claw Silver Wolves emerged and gathered around the camp. Iron Claw Silver Wolves hunted in packs and usually at least 4 or 5 hunted together. In some situations, there could even be thousands of wolves that attacked together. If they were unfortunate enough to encounter such an insane number of wolves, even a cultivator of the 9th realm would find it hard to escape such a fate. This pack had only 6 wolves, which could be considered a small pack. However, with their combined attacks, this pack was enough to annihilate such a small group of cultivators. Adding on to the fact that it was completely dark now, which was favorable to the wolves, but for the cultivators, it was very disadvantageous. Seeing the Iron Claw Silver Wolves slowly closing in, Luo Jiyun's heart was beating furiously. These were 4th-tiered magical beasts. Could sister-in-law's array really work? Was it reliable enough? On Huang Yueli's side of the camp, it was nearer to where the wolves were and they had very quickly reached the perimeter and was walking along it. The leader of the pack suddenly stopped and as if it had discovered something amiss, it started sniffing the ground. Luo Jiyun's heartbeat accelerated. It looks like there really is something wrong with sister-in-law's array. The Iron Claw silver wolves were known for their extreme senses, especially their sense of sight and smell. They got closer and closer. Any time now, they would be discovered. He really didn't know what his senior brother was thinking. He didn't even leave anyone to guard during the night. Now there's trouble. What's going to happen? He was extremely anxious and he suddenly tapped his head and decided to wake Murong and I up, and once they encounter any dangers, they would immediately deactivate their array and head over to help senior brother. However, the moment he turned around, the leader of the pack had raised its head to the moon once again and howled. Following their leader, the 5 other wolves followed and raised their heads to the moon and howled. Together, the 6 of them suddenly started attacking. You can also listen on. Bam! A loud bang resounded and the earth shook violently. Luo Jiyun felt a dizzy for a moment as the tremors knocked him off balance and he fell heavily to the ground. It wasn't easy for him to stand back up, and when he looked out, his heart almost stopped. The direction the Iron Claw silver wolves attacked was not Huang Yueli's camp but the one where he and Murong and I were. Bam! 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 One after another, the Iron Claw silver wolves continued their relentless assault against the barrier of the array. Although they were currently blocked by barrier of the beast diversion array, however, every time they attacked, the outer part of the array would shine with a dazzling light, showing the entirety of the array patterns. Luo Jiyun knew that this was the array's self-defense mechanism that was powered by the crystal's energy. Although it seemed safe now, the impact of 6 fourth-tiered magical beasts was not small and the energy in the crystals would very soon be depleted. At that time, they would be standing bare before these Iron Claw silver wolves. What's worse, this moment seemed not far away because each time they attacked, the light emitted by the array weakened, and at this rate they were going, he could see the lights began to dim remarkably at the speed that was visible to the naked eye. What happened? The tremors are so strong. It must be that magical beasts are attacking that fox demoness already, right? Ha ha ha, I've already said so earlier, that broken array has absolutely no use. It's impossible to hide from any magical beasts with such a pathetic array. See? Now I've been proven right. Ha ha ha, When Murong and I heard the loud noise, she had woken up at once, and before she could even put on her boots, she had rushed out of the tent in glee. She couldn't wait to gloat and ridicule Huang Yueli. However, when she raised her head and saw that it was her own array that had been surrounded by a pack of 6 Iron Claw silver wolves, and to her side was a pale-faced Luo Jiyun, she was petrified on the immediately. She was tongue-tied. Stop spacing out. We're under attack by the Iron Claw silver wolves. Quickly, dress up and take out your 9-segment whip. Get ready for battle. Luo Jiyun couldn't take it anymore and snapped. Murong and I still had yet to recover from her shock. Impossible. That fox demoness camp is just opposite. Why did the Iron Claw silver wolves not attack them but us instead? This shouldn't happen. What's so impossible? Luo Jiyun was already in a bad mood and reproached her. Obviously sister-in-law's array is the one that's working. That's why those Iron Claw silver wolves did not discover their camp and did not attack them. They're attacking us so viciously, which further proves that what sister-in-law said was right. Your array did not divert but lured them instead. No, it's impossible. I am the 2nd-rank array master. She is only a country bumpkin. How can her array be better than mine? Murong was still screaming and yelling her head off. Luo Jiyun could no longer wait because he saw that the light on the array pattern had almost completely diminished and was afraid that the Iron Claw silver wolves would enter at any time. Looking at the incoherent Murong in front of him, he knew that she was not reliable and he could only try his best to protect the both of them and think of ways to seek help from senior brother. As long as his senior brother was here, saving them would not be any problem. The problem at hand was, no one over at senior brother's camp was keeping watch, so how were they going to get their attention? You can also listen on. The Iron Claw silver wolves surrounding their camp also recognized that their success was near. A few wolves exchanged glances and suddenly jumped into the air together and launched an attack in unison. Boom! With a large bang, Murong's array was officially scrapped and the few Iron Claw silver wolves did not stop in their tracks as they ran towards the two prey within as a silver glint shone as they struck out their sharp claws. Luo Jiyun had already prepared himself earlier and with a loud shout, the long sword in his hand was rushed towards the wolf that was leading the attack. When the Iron Claw silver wolf saw its own blood drip down the blade, the green in its eyes deepened as its gaze sharpened. It seemed even more stimulated than before as it howled and turned its body and pounced towards Luo Jiyun as if seeking vengeance. Luo Jiyun was defending the flurry of attacks from its lethal claws from all directions. He was at the second level of the 5th degree realm. Being from a large sect, in terms of techniques and skills, they were all top-notch. Even his battle strength was higher than a normal cultivator of the same rank by quite a few levels. If this was a one-on-one fight, he would definitely have it easy defeating one Iron Claw silver wolf. Maybe even two would just take a little more effort. However, now there were 6 Iron Claw silver wolves. Moreover, he now had an extra baggage, Murong. Murong was only at the first level of the 4th degree realm, and since her specialization was on arrays, in terms of battle strength, she was really lacking. Her usual battle strength was already a deficit and being overtaken by fear, even simple dodging was a problem as she stood there dumbly like a sore thumb. In order to save her, Luo Jiyun was injured in a flash. He couldn't take it and shouted at her, Murong. Run quickly. Stop spacing out. Hurry and run over to senior brother's camp and seek help. Murong finally snapped back to her senses and as if roused from a dream, she looked at the direction Luo Jiyun was pointing at and rushed over. The moment she moved, one Iron Claw silver wolf chased after her. Luo Jiyun did not seem to care about himself as he dashed after that wolf and blocked it. However, his shoulder was caught and a long gash across was immediately seen as fresh crimson blood spilled forth as he let out a loud groan. Murong felt a cold chill as her whole body started trembling. She had finally came to a realization how close to death she was and she quickly picked up her speed, not caring that she wasn't wearing any shoes at all. She didn't dare to even turn back and dashed madly in a beeline straight towards Huang Yueli's camp. Help! Help! Senior brother, help! Murong was screaming loudly as she ran. However, there was still no movement on the other side of the camp. To her horror, she realized that this was a type of array that isolated noise and those in the array could not hear anything that was happening outside. She gritted her teeth and pushed herself even further, while she congealed all the profound chi she could muster and braced herself as her speed increased beyond her own limits as she struck into the array. This was the most powerful attack that she had learnt. Murong's response was the right method. Since the people in the array can't hear them, then the most efficient way now was to get their attention by attacking their array. Only when facing an attack would the people in the array know. However, what happened was entirely different from what she had imagined. She had used her entire reservoir of profound chi in this strike, yet there wasn't any shock from the impact at all. Instead, her palm felt like she had hit soft cotton instead. All the power seemed to have been absorbed and her palm went deep into the array, but then it bounced back out gently. Murong and I had used all her strength in this strike, and this time round, she was pushed backwards by a few steps before she came to a stop. Although she did not suffer from any wounds, but she was shocked to the extreme. You can also listen on. At this moment, Murong and I finally understood why there was no need for anyone to stand guard for Huang Yueli's array. It was because this array could automatically dispel the forces of external force, hence eliminating any fear of attracting the attention of any magical beasts that may have accidentally touched the array. The reason why Murong and I could feel the barrier was because she had used up all her profound qi in that one attack that was targeted specifically at the array. If it was just a magical beast that was passing by and had inadvertently encountered it, with such a feature, it would be difficult to attract its attention. Moreover, the intelligence of magical beasts were much lower than humans, so they would certainly be unaware and would bypass it unknowingly. She had understood the profoundness behind the array, but Murong and I was in complete shock. She just couldn't fathom, how was this achieved? Why did her array, which had been laid using third-tier crystals and materials, had attracted the attention of the Iron Claw Silver Wolves and was even forcefully broken by them? Yet Huang Yueli's array, which also used third-tier materials, not only was concealed so well, it even had such an outstanding effect. This was simply unheard of. "Junior sister, be careful," Luo Jiyun cried out in exclamation not far from behind. Murong and I hurriedly turned around and saw two Iron Claw Silver Wolves headed towards her. The iron claws glinted under the moonlight and flashed in front of her. Luo Jiyun was under the combined siege of 4 other silver wolves, and he was already having difficulty protecting himself, let alone save her. Murong and I panicked and slammed the barrier of the array, but could only feel that her fist and leg had stepped into water. Not a single sound could be heard. "Senior brother. Help. I beg of you, please save us, sister-in-law, I was wrong. I know that I'm in the wrong. You are the real array master, please save us." Murong and I had plopped to the ground on both knees and was crying as she begged desperately, yelling until her voice was hoarse. If Huang Yueli was here now and had asked her to kowtow to her, she would definitely not hesitate and do it. In the tent, Huang Yueli had actually been awake for some time. Although there was no arrangement for night vigil, Huang Yueli had already informed Li Moying and his guards in advance to not sleep too deep, and they should be awake by the 5th period of the night watch. Moe was somewhat puzzled. "There's really no need for me to guard at night. Actually, the 3 of us can take turns. It's not too hard, and we do not need to trouble Master and 3rd Mississippi. After all, this is the Dark Moon Forest, it's better to be more careful. No, you can sleep with ease." Huang Yueli replied immediately, a cold glint flashed by her eyes. "You may have to fight a big battle in the second half of the night, so don't waste any unnecessary energy for the first half. Rest well to preserve your strength." At that time, Moe, Mo Air and Mo San were still apprehensive, but when they had awoken by the second half of the night, they realized that Huang Yueli had already expected that Murong Ni's camp would be assaulted by magical beasts. These had all fallen within her expectations, and she had even thought things out so carefully. This had gained the shock and awe of Li Moying's subordinates. This future mistress of theirs, although she didn't have a high cultivation, however, her ability to plan was no less than their master. In actual fact, this wasn't all that hard for Huang Yueli. Murong Ni's array was as she had mentioned earlier, although it could conceal. However, too much profound qi was leaking out from it, hence it was easy to attract magical beasts that were 4th tier and above. You can also listen on. Under the veil of the night in Dark Moon Forest, the first half of the night belonged to the lower-tiered magical beasts, where the 1st and 2nd-tiered magical beasts were the most active. Hence, Murong and I and Luo Jiyun would be safe during this period. Only after midnight would the 3rd and 4th tier magical beasts come out to hunt. At that time, Murongni's self-acclaimed beast diversion array would be like a lighthouse in the night, attracting all kinds of fourth-tiered magical beasts to it. They would be in danger then. Although Huang Yueli did not like Murongni, however, she was still the junior sister of Li Moying and she didn't want her to die. Although Murongni was annoying, Luo Jiyun was a good youth, and if he were to die just like this because he was dragged down by Murongni, it really was too sad. Therefore, Huang Yueli had already prepared in advance and had already given Li Moying and the rest a heads up. They had to be prepared to save them when they were in danger. When the Iron Claw Silver Wolves appeared, several of them had already woken up, but Huang Yueli was still asleep and Li Moying did not want to wake her up. That was why only when the Iron Claw Silver Wolves had started to attack the array did she begin to stir. When she woke up, she saw that Li Moying was seated beside the entrance of the tent and looking out. With the moonlight illuminating that perfect side profile, it was an extremely dazzling sight to behold. Huang Yueli pursed her lips. She remembered that just before bedtime, the man had stuck to her shamelessly like glue and insisted on sleeping in the same tent as her. At that time, she had firmly opposed to that arrangement. Men and women are different. We can't sleep in the same tent. Go and sleep with the other men. Li Moying immediately showed a face filled with grievance. How can I do that? After all, I am their master. If I sleep with them, they wouldn't dare sleep already and would even run out on their own. This wouldn't be fair to them, right? Anyway, there are 2 tents, one for male and the other for female. That's very reasonable. How can it be reasonable? One for the engaged couple, the other for the singles. That's more reasonable. Who is an engaged couple with you? Huang Yueli's rage exploded, but in the end, she still allowed the wolf into the same tent. Fortunately, the man, although cheeky, still behaved appropriately and did not take advantage of her. The 2 of them sat down and cultivated while facing each other before falling asleep. After she woke up, she went to his side and observed the situation of the other camp with him. At this point, the Iron Claw Silver Wolves had already broken the array and was rushing towards Murongni and Luo Jiyun. Huang Yueli had not expected that their luck to be so bad. The MB attracted turned out to be the Iron Claw Silver Wolves. That was akin to the existence of the king among the 4th-tiered magical beasts. And to have encountered 6 in a pack. She furrowed her brows and looked back at Li Moying but found that there was not a trace of nervousness on his face at all. His gaze was locked on the Iron Claw Silver Wolves. Very soon, Luo Jiyun could no longer hold on and Murongni was in a panic and had rushed over to seek help. Li Moying, I will deactivate the array now and you guys can go over and save them. Li Moying shook his head. No hurry, wait a bit more. Ah. Huang Yueli was slightly taken aback. If it was someone else, she wouldn't be so nosy and do such a troublesome thing, but since these were the same disciples of the same sect as Li Moying, she had offered to deactivate the array to save them. Who knew? Their own senior brother seemed to be more calm than her. You can also listen on. Li Moying lowered his head and saw a bright pair of eyes staring right back at him in curiosity. He suddenly felt that she was extremely adorable and he couldn't resist but reached out and pinched her cheeks. Hey! What are you doing? Huang Yueli's expression turned grim immediately and glared fiercely at him. Li Moying could only retract his hand bitterly. The feeling's not bad. I wonder if I took a bite instead, how would it feel? This man actually thought of biting her. Huang Yueli's face had almost turned green and she immediately turned her palm and struck out towards his chest. Li Moying laughed and caught her hand and pulled it towards him, making her sit next to him. Stop fooling around. What kind of timing is this? If you continue to do this, your junior brother, and that precious junior sister of yours would lose their lives. Huang Yueli tried to pull her hand back but she couldn't pull it out of his grasp. She could only sit beside him in exasperation and watch the fun. However, she was still one that possessed in conscience, so she did remind Li Moying to save people, just that her tone was tinged with sourness. Li Moying could also hear that undertone in and his heart soared. It looks like allowing Murong and I to follow was the right choice. Only a day had passed and this little fox was already eating vinegar. Her tone was filled with sourness. It would not be wrong to say that she held no feelings for him. No one would believe that. He followed her line of sight and looked out. Don't worry, first let that kid Jian hold the fort on his own for a bit and see if he's able to push himself to the next level. Huang Yueli blinked, couldn't tell that you believe in such iron-hearted methods for training. Some big sects adhered strictly to these iron-hearted principles where their disciples were forced to fight and face dangers constantly. Only those who were victorious could enjoy various resources and privileges provided by the sect. Those that lost would eventually end up as a corpse. Such a layer of screening seemed very cruel, but the selected core disciples were all individuals with exceedingly fighting prowess. However, it had never crossed her mind that Li Moying had belonged to such a sect. He seems like the type that was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, and as a senior brother, he looked like he was quite protective of his fellow disciples. Li Moying let out a low laugh. It's not exactly like that, it also depends on the person. Jian, this kid, you have no idea, but he's actually an 8th grade talent. Aw. He's an 8th grade talent. You've got to be kidding. A talent that was in the 8th grade was considered to be a super talent, and adding to the fact that he's from a big sect that provided all the best resources, with these conditions coupled together, Luo Jian seemed to be a 5th degree realm in the late stages, but in actual fact, he was only in the 2nd level of the 5th degree realm. This gap seemed to be pretty big. Li Moying shook his head and said, I'm not kidding. Not only is he talented, he is also of the metal attribute. However, his personality seems to conflict with it, so that's why it's been hard for him to break through. A look of understanding showed on her face. Cultivators of different attributes also excelled in different aspects. For example, those with fire attributes excelled in group battles, those wind attributes were known for speed, while those with water attributes recovered very fast. Those with the metal attributes were known for their outstanding offensive powers and decisive lethal blows that blew away anything that stood in their way. However, Luo Jian's personality of a good sunshine youth conflicted with this. She could tell by seeing how he was always suppressed by Murong and I. This type of personality coupled with the gold attribute really was a mismatch. No wonder his cultivation proceeded so slowly. Not all in tandem with his actual talent. You can also listen on. So although he was nervous, but when he made a move, he was much more assertive and decisive. Very quickly, he had slain yet another Iron Claw silver wolves and had severely wounded another. However, he had almost completely exhausted all his profound chi by now. Seeing that there were still 3 Iron Claw silver wolves which remained uninjured and 2 were rushing towards the defenseless Murong and I, he truly felt despair. Another silver wolf leapt high in the air towards him as it aimed for his throat. He made preparations to die along with it. Just at that moment, the wolf that was still in midair suddenly seemed to have stiffened. Immediately after, it fell directly and slammed onto the ground with a resounding bang. Its head dived down first and it died on the spot. There wasn't any obvious wound on the wolf, only a pin-sized hole on its chest. If one did not look carefully, it couldn't even be found. This was an extraordinary sword intent that had been converged to such precision, and it was driven straight through the heart. You can also listen on. Luo Jian's eyes widened and he was lagging in reaction as he stood there frozen in place. A tall figure slowly walked out from the darkness and he was surrounded by the fluctuations of profound chi as the atmosphere had turned stifling and repressive. Luo Jiyun finally let out a long sigh of relief. It was senior brother. Li Moying stood in front of him and there was a hint of laughter in his eyes. Not bad. Based on your cultivation, under the attack of 6 Iron Claw Silver Wolves, not only did you manage to hold on for so long, you even managed to slay 2 and heavily injure 1, all while protecting your junior sister. Not bad at all. Li Moying seldom praised his fellow disciple, so when Luo Jiyun heard it, he felt exhilarated. He scratched his head shyly and laughed out, heh heh. Li Moying asked, "Are you able to stand?" This doesn't seem possible." Luo Jiyun had a long and deep laceration across his leg. Moe and Moe rushed over and supported him as they brought him over to their tent. Huang Yueli took out a huge stash of pills and stuffed it into his hands. "Eat them all up. We've still got a long way to cover tomorrow, don't delay the business of your senior brother." Luo Jiyun looked down and his eyes almost popped out. Spirit Vitality Pill, Chi Vitality Pill, Unfettered Pill. These were all second-level upper-grade pills. Just any one of these pills were worth tens of thousands of gold. This stash here cost at least 40 to 50,000 gold. Although he belonged to a large sect, however, the resources he received were all limited and they would receive a fixed number of pills every month and they wouldn't give anyone such a large amount to just eat it so casually. Moreover, if comparing to their origins, wasn't sister-in-law from South Yu Kingdom and he heard that she's never seen the world. How did she manage to take out such a huge stash of precious pills? She was simply a nouveau riche. Thinking back on her array, it was way more effective than what Murong and I laid out. The gaze he looked at her was filled with mixed emotions. Other than shock, there was also a hint of worship. Huang Yueli simply smiled and did not explain any further. These pills were all from the Sky Phoenix Ring and there was a huge cabinet full of them. If she were to eat them alone, even if she ate them like jelly beans every day, she wouldn't be able to finish them all. Moreover, the next time the Sky Phoenix Ring undergoes another upgrade, there was sure to be higher-ranked pills. That was why, wasn't it better to take it out to get some goodwill, and she also quite liked this kid as well. Luo Jiyun was touched as he called out, "Thank you so much, sister-in-law." The wounds he received were all superficial wounds and with these pills, he would have almost fully recovered by tomorrow. Huang Yueli nodded her head in approval, but when her eyes swept by the surroundings, she suddenly cried out. "Ah! Wait! Wait! These wolf bones shouldn't be kept like this. Oh! Such a waste! A huge waste!" In a matter of moments, she did not continue talking to Luo Jiyun and dashed over. After so many events happening one after another, time passed very quickly and very soon, it was almost daybreak. Moe, Mo and Mo San were busy dealing with the remains of the Iron Claw Silver Wolves. Magical beasts were extremely sturdy and their entire being was a treasure trove of high-quality materials. For example, for the Iron Claw Silver Wolves, other than their inner core, their fur, claws, bones were all precious materials that were extremely sought after by armament masters as well as alchemists. They were all experienced veterans in dealing with the remains of magical beasts. However, today, they had finally met a professional in this field. "Why did you pierce the knife directly from the back? This way, the bones can't be taken out completely." "Ah! It could have been used to make the bow of a strong bow. Now that it's been broken, you can only make smaller accessories. The value is tens of times lower, do you understand? You can also listen on." Moreover, not only did her own array not work, it backfired and attracted a whole pack of Iron Claw Silver Wolves that had almost forfeited their own lives. Thinking back on how panicked she was and how desperate she was crying out for help outside the other array in helplessness, she really couldn't wait to find a hole and hide in it. She had been completely trampled on by Huang Yueli. Murong and I had always been spoilt and arrogant. It never even crossed her mind that it all due to her own complacency that this had occurred. With not enough skills, yet she had wanted to act smart and it almost resulted in a tragedy. She only blamed the result of this shame was all on Huang Yueli. She kept thinking that if this fox demoness had not suddenly appeared out of nowhere and seduced her senior brother and used what other means to confuse fifth brother and the three Mo brothers, how could she end up in such a miserable state? The more she thought about it, the more she was unreconciled she was. When she saw everyone crowd around Huang Yueli, she was filled with resentment and had nowhere to vent that she had almost suffered an internal injury. You can also listen on. Mo Er and Mo San had always been listening to the commands of Li Moying. Even Murong Ni's sister, Murong Yu, a proud daughter of the heavens, was no exception. But now, they did not hesitate and listened attentively to Huang Yueli's commands and were even sent to do menial tasks such as cutting the wolf's fur. How could this be? How did she buy the hearts of these people? Murong and I stared hatefully at Huang Yueli. Although her heart was filled with frustration and jealousy, but she knew that this time, she had stirred up quite a bit of trouble, and since Huang Yueli had proven her abilities, her position in the heart of the team was elevated. Therefore, if she was to stand fully opposed to Huang Yueli, no one would stand on her side. Murong and I had to force herself to swallow this grudge first. Anyway, they still had to stay in the Dark Moon Forest for a while more, so there were still opportunities waiting for a chance to strike back. The team of 7 packed up and continued deeper into the forest. On the 3rd day, they had finally entered the inner regions. 5th tier or higher magical beasts roamed these lands, and generally, cultivators 5th degree realm cultivators did not dare enter. Even 6th degree realm cultivators do not dare enter alone. They would usually need to form a mercenary team of at least 20 people before they dared to enter the inner zone. Wait! When the 7 of them approached a fork on the road, Li Moying stopped them. Moe, who held on to the map and was leading the front, stopped immediately, turned around and asked, "Master, what is your order?" "Go this way." Li Moying pointed to one of the roads. Moe was stunned for a moment and immediately replied, "But, Master, the map states that if we take the left path and with just a day's walk, we would reach the Spirit Jade Vein. If we were to take the other path, not only is it a long detour, it would also trespass a few gathering areas of the magical beasts." Li Moying replied, "I am preparing to head to the gathering areas of the magical beasts. This time, in addition to looking for the profound lunar jade, there's another purpose. I need to collect some magical beast cores of 5th tier and 6th tier magical beasts with fire attributes." Huang Yueli was stunned and immediately looked up. She understood the moment she heard it. For no rhyme or reason, why would he want the magical beast core of these specific magical beasts? These were obviously for her. They were in the list that she had provided a few days back. Li Moying noticed that she was looking at him and smiled at her. "Don't be too touched, I'm planning to go get them myself. This way, I can more money. Or else I might go broke by supporting your spending habits." "You?" Huang Yueli glared at him. Although he had put it across in such a joking manner, she knew deep in her heart that Li Moying did not care a single bit about spending money. Money was nothing to him. He was in such a haste to get them because she had told him before that she needed the magical beast cores urgently. He must have felt that in order to collect all these, which were limited and rare, he could only attain them from auctions, and this would take time, and this in turn might delay her matters. This man. He was simply too good to her that she really had nothing to complain about. To even render her clueless on what she should do to reciprocate his deep feelings. When Li Moying had mentioned this matter, the others immediately understood that these magical beast cores were all for Huang Yueli. Luo Jiyun and the other guards zipped their mouths and did not disagree any further. Therefore, from the moment they turned and took the right path, everyone knew how much Li Moying had pampered this fiancé of his. You can also listen on. However, Murong and I jumped out begrudgingly. Yuli, are you kidding me? You are only of the first realm, in what way would you ever need to use magical beast cores of such a high tiers? Moreover, you even need senior brother to take such a huge risk for you by personally heading into such a dangerous place to get it for you. Huang Yueli knitted her brows. As for these magical beasts, I naturally have my own use for them. However, why should I tell you the reason? Even if I told you, you wouldn't be able to understand. This could be considered the most undisguised contempt and provocation. However, after the previous episode of the array joke, in terms of worldly experience, Murong and I no longer dared to think of her as a country bumpkin. Now, she could only use Huang Yueli's low cultivation as her weak point to attack, and she would always bring rise to it once in a while. Don't you know that the profound lunar jade is very important to senior brother? It's an extremely important matter to him. But in order to help you attain those magical beast cores of yours, it is delaying his matter, and if we miss the opportunity, the consequences would be dire. Just to satisfy your own happiness and vanity, you are troubling senior brother to help you do things that may affect his big matters. That's too selfish of you. No matter how she looked at Huang Yueli, Murong and I found her not pleasing to the eye. This time round, senior brother had specifically entered the Dark Moon Forest for this important matter, and yet because of this fox demoness, he still deliberately took a detour to help her get what magical beast cores. On top of that, they were 5th and 6th tiered magical beast cores. What kind of concept was this? 6th tiered magical beasts were on par with cultivators of the 7th realm. Even if senior brother could kill one, it wouldn't be an easy battle. In addition, senior brother's status was so prestigious, but for a fox demoness that came from a backwater kingdom, he would actually stoop so low and risk his life for her. However, in exchange, Murong Ni's remarks only got Li Moying's cold glare. Shut up. Who gave you such audacity to talk this way to your sister-in-law? This matter was decided on my own accord and not what she had asked me to do. I'm sure that you all should know very well by now that if it's not something that I wish to do myself, no one can ever force me to do anything. Murong Ni's heart thumped loudly. She had known his strong personality. However, it was because she knew it that she was unable to accept that the usual aloof senior brother had actually willingly did everything for this insignificant girl. This was too heart-wrenching. Why was this girl not her? In his eyes, there was only that fox demoness. When Huang Yueli heard them argue, she frowned and turned to look at him. I didn't know that your matter was so urgent. Since you need the profound lunar spirit mirror, let's hurry and finish up your matters first. Let's look for another chance next time to get those magical beast cores. Li Moying shook his head and replied earnestly, there's no need to. In terms of timing, we'll definitely make it on time. After all, it's only 5th and 6th tiered magical beast cores. I just need to be more careful, and I'll just need a few extra days to get them. There's no need to specially wait and do it another time. Since he had put it like that, Huang Yueli nodded her head happily. Li Moying did not even bother to look at Murong and I any further and led the team deeper down the path. Murong and I saw everyone walk ahead and stomped unhappily on the ground. Luo Jiyun could not help but shook his head and sighed, Junior sister, stop looking for trouble with sister-in-law. I can see that she is quite a good person. Not only is she beautiful and adorable, she is also very knowledgeable, not to mention her arrays. You can also listen on. It was better if Luo Jiyun did not mention the word array, because once he did, he succeeded in triggering Murong Ni's rage even more. Murong and I rolled her eyes at him. Fifth brother, you don't have any backbones, just a few bottles of medicinal pills and you've been bribed. I am different from you. I've not been, hey. Luo Jiyun wanted to continue to persuade, but unfortunately Murong and I was too lazy to listen anymore and simply ran ahead to catch up with the rest. Luo Jiyun shook his head in exasperation, and his heart started to have foreboding feeling. He felt that Murong and I was treading a dangerous path, and this kind of mentality was scary. If it was not rectified soon, it could lead to a huge disaster. The group of them walked along the winding path, deeper and deeper into the woods. This time round, Moe and the rest had heightened their vigilance and checked their surroundings every now and then. This was, after all, the gathering areas of 5th and 6th tiered magical beasts. They hadn't walked very far when a few had already spotted several magical beasts in the vicinity. The oppressive aura of the 5th tier magical beast could be felt even if they were far away. Even when facing 4th tier magical beasts, Murong and I was already gripped by fear. For someone who had been stirring up trouble every now and then, ever since they had entered the gathering area of these magical beasts, she had quietened down a lot and sticking to Luo Jiyun's side the entire time. Huang Yueli didn't seem at all affected as she explored the surrounding terrain and environment, earnestly searching for a suitable magical beasts to hunt down. There were many magical beasts in this area, but finding a suitable one was not so easy. First of all, she needed one of the fire attribute. Even if they killed magical beasts of other attributes, it would be all for naught, and it would also endanger Li Moying needlessly. Therefore it was better to make ample preparation and search for a suitable target from the start. Secondly, most of the magical beasts roamed about in packs, and if there were too many in one pack, even Li Moying would find it difficult to cope with it, hence they had to look for solo targets or create opportunities to disperse them. After searching for a long time, she had finally narrowed down on one single horned flame bull. This was a species of a 5th tier magical beast of the fire attribute. Its body was big and clumsy, its attack and speed weren't outstanding, the only thing that it was more well known for was its defense. That ridiculously thick layer of hide could even block the attacks of cultivators of the 7th realm. However, unfortunately for this single-horned flame bull, it had met Li Moying. For him, against its defense wasn't much. Hence this unlucky fella was singled out and quickly confirmed as their first target. Moe volunteered to take the initiative and act as a lure. He shot out a sharp arrow and hit its jaw, inciting the wrath of the single-horned flame bull. It saw red as it grunted loudly and shot out a fireball, throwing it in the direction where the arrow came from before rushing over in mad rage. There was also another characteristic of the single-horned flame bull: once it has determined its target, it would only focus on that one target until it was killed. That was why once Moe retreated, it had followed him and was very soon lured into an open space. Huang Yueli had long hid herself behind a towering ancient wooden stump, and had peeked out to see how Li Moying was going to hunt it down. In her previous life, when she had just reached the 6th realm, she had came to Dark Moon Forest to hone her skills and gain experience. At that time, she had nearly lost her little life to this bull since all her attacks had no way of penetrating its defense. Only after she had sacrificed the soul of the zither did it collapse. At this point, in a flash, Li Moying had already appeared to the left of the single-horned flame bull. You can also listen on. Donning a black robe and with his calm demeanor, his dark obsidian eyes looked at it indifferently. He stood there quietly, motionless. The single-horned flame bull rushed straight in his direction, and its huge and heavy body made loud rumbling noises as it moved with vigor as the ground groaned and trembled beneath it. Li Moying still had no expression as he stood there with his hands behind his back calmly. Until the single-horned flame bull had rushed in front of him, Li Moying suddenly moved and his figure seemed to be an illusionary shadow momentarily before it returned back to his original position. The single-horned flame bull passed through his figure and continued to rush on forward. However, this time, it had only taken 7 steps. When it took its 7th step, it suddenly gasped its last breath and with a reverberating loud bang, its huge body crashed onto the ground and its eyes flared wide open, filled with disbelief. Huang Yueli was taken by surprise and blinked curiously. She walked over to the huge beast that lay on the ground and walked around it, searching for clues. Like the iron-claw silver wolf, there was no obvious wounds on this stupid bull. There was only a pin-sized hole at the position of its heart. A sword intent that had been condensed and pierced through its heart in one single strike. The same move, clean, cool and efficient. The iron-claw silver wolf was known for its speed, however its defense was only average. As long as its weakness was grasped, it was not difficult to defeat it. But this was the single-horned flame bull, it was totally different. It was a 5th-tier magical beast and its defense was extremely amazing. Even for an ordinary cultivator in the 6th realm to break broad its defense, he would need to expend lots of effort. However, not only did Li Moying penetrate through its tough defense, he did it only in a single move. A single strike pierced straight through its heart. This kind of attack power was on par with cultivators of the 8th realm. Moreover, he did not even have a sword in his hand. With just pure sword intent, he had already achieved such an incredible level. This was an inborn talent, he was a natural-born killer. In view of his young age, his talent was even above Mu Qingying. Actually, Huang Yueli suspected that he might have a special physique. Didn't the little phoenix mention before that this man's blood was noble? Even for the divine beast, the phoenix had felt a natural pressure from it. While Huang Yueli was still in a daze, Li Moying had already taken out a sharp dagger and lodged it into the position of the heart. With one turn and one deft flick, one magical beast core that was surrounded by a dazzling red glow had been dug out. Little Lear, here's the magical beast core that you wanted. Wow! This core is filled with abundant energy, thank you. After she thanked him, she kept it immediately. When she saw Moe and the other two deal with the body of the beast, she couldn't restrain herself once again. That horn! The single-horned flame bull's horn is a very good material for alchemy, be more gentle a bit, you'll definitely be able to retrieve it in one entire piece, cut it from there. Li Moying looked on in humor as he shook his head. The habit of the little fox started again, in her eyes, the attraction towards all these materials seemed to be more than him. The entire process of killing the single-horned flame bull was very smooth, however, there were very few of them. It took about 3 days when they barely found 9 of them and hunted them all down. Next in their agenda was to find and hunt down 6th-tiered magical beasts. Things wouldn't be as easy. You can also listen on. To hunt down a 6th-tier magical beast, we must continue to advance towards the east and delve deeper into the forest where the boundary that separates the inner zone and the restricted zone. Moe pointed it out on the map to everyone as he explained. Luo Jiyun's face reflected a moment of hesitation. If we head there, it's very close to the restricted area, moreover, the gathering area of 6th-tier magical beast is a very dangerous place for us. Among them, other than Li Moying and Murong and I, the rest of their cultivation levels were in the 5th realm. Although they could be considered the best in the same ranks, however, they were barely comparable to the cultivators of the 6th realm. In the gathering area of the 5th-tier magical beast, they were still not so nervous. After all, with their own strength, they could still defeat 5th-tier magical beast with extra effort. In addition, they still had Li Moying, who was a peerless expert in their ranks. Hence, the risk level had significantly dropped. But it was a different story altogether for the gathering area of 6th-tier magical beast. However, with them facing a 6th-tier magical beast, they might not even be able to match a swipe of the paw and may already be in grave danger. They might even perish before they could hold on and wait for Li Moying's support. Li Moying deliberated for a while before he said, I still need to head in, but the rest of you don't need to follow. Just continue to bring little Lear along this path and head towards the east, past the gathering area of the 6th tier magical beast, and wait for me directly at the profound lunar jade vein. Ah. Master, you intend to head in alone. How could this be? What if something happens? That's right, senior brother, what if anything happens? How do you expect me to explain it to Master? Luo Jiyun lamented with a pitiful face. Li Moying furrowed his brows and in a disapproving tone, he said, Jiyun, do you think that your senior brother is that useless? While you were still in the arms of your mother, I was already out on my own gaining experience. I've been to Dark Moon Forest Restricted Zone quite a number of times, so there's no need for you all to worry unnecessarily about me. Seeing his subordinates who still had on worrisome expressions mixed with disapproval, he continued on, truth be told, I'm much safer without having to protect you guys. Their face crumbled, but they knew that he was telling the truth and no one could refute that. Even Huang Yueli, who usually liked to go against him, remained silent at this time. She knew that what he said was right, for him to go in alone to stealthily hunt down a 6th tier magical beast wasn't that hard a mission. However, if he were to bring them along, what's more, there was the biggest hindrance, her cultivation of the first realm. Without a doubt, it would drag everyone into danger. At this moment, Huang Yueli really hated the fact that her cultivation was so low. If only her cultivation was similar to Li Moying, she wouldn't need him to brave the dangers alone and she could accompany him. Her now was ridden with uneasiness and remorse. When Li Moying saw that his subordinates didn't say anything further, he continued, since that's been agreed on, let's part our ways here. I will meet you in 7 days. MOE, take good care of 3rd Mississippi. He turned and his warm gaze rested on Huang Yueli's pretty face. Be good, follow MOE and the rest, be more careful, don't make me worry. Huang Yueli rolled her eyes, I'll definitely be fine, it's you who needs to be more careful. Don't make everyone worry. Oh yeah. While she was talking, she took out a few hidden weapons from the Sky Phoenix ring. These were all specially prepared for this trip to Dark Moon Forest, each of them were either 4th level higher or 5th grade armaments as she stuffed them into his hands. Take these along with you, who knows, you might have a use for them. You can also listen on. Li Moying was stunned for a moment before he revealed a teasing smile. Not going to charge me for it? What kind of situation was it? He still had the cheek to talk about this. Huang Yueli retorted back, just keep it on tab. Li Moying smiled yet again and said, you money grubber, I can't afford it. Just keep it yourself and keep it for yourself, don't underestimate your man. Protect yourself and don't let others despise your man, it's only a 6th grade beast, just wait for me to come back. Li Moying was like a bolt of lightning, with lift of his legs, he had already moved ahead and one could only see the shadow of his silhouette. The rest of the people still couldn't react in time. Li Moying has always been very resolute on his decisions and made them very fast. This wasn't considered a very rare. The only rare thing would be that because of a single word from Huang Yueli, he was smiling so happily about it. Damn it, was the sky gonna rain red? Huang Yueli's influence towards him was seriously too inclined. MOE was the first to come back to his senses as he said, since Master had already decided, then we must quickly leave this place. For the next few days, we have to hurry to the outer perimeter. Since Master is not with us, we have to protect 3rd Miss well and try to avoid any unnecessary battles. All the other subordinates nodded their heads in agreement. Murong and I sneered as she said, no wonder it's someone who's dragging our hind legs. We even have to pay special attention to her protection. Luo Jiyun furrowed his brows and looked back and said, Junior sister, please don't say another word. Did I say anything wrong? Isn't it a fact that she is only in the 1st degree realm? If not for us, how could she stay so safe in the 5th tier magical beasts gathering area? Murong and I turned towards Huang Yueli, her gaze filled with jealousy. Speaking of which, senior brother treats you very well. Not only did he help you personally hunt down the magical beasts for their cores, he even gave you so many high-grade armaments. Murong and I was staring at the armaments when Huang Yueli had taken them out and was convinced in her heart that Li Moying had given them to her. It also made sense since Huang Yueli came from such a small kingdom. Moreover, in the entire continent, there weren't many fifth-tier armament masters to begin with. So where could a little girl like her get so many high-grade armaments from? It had to be that fox demoness who seduced and cheated them out from her senior brother. Are you talking about these? Huang Yueli looked at Murong and I as if she was a joke. This self-absorbed rich girl must have thought that once Li Moying had left, no one would stand up for her and she could take this opportunity to do whatever she wanted and stir up more trouble. However, Murong and I had missed one very important fact. She, Huang Yueli, was never one who needed a man to rely on as her backing. Huang Yueli was organizing the armaments in her hand, and when she touched one of them, her hand moved suddenly. A streak of light shot out in the direction of Murong and I. The speed of this streak of light was too fast, going even beyond the speed of a cultivator of the 5th degree realm. Before Murong and I could react in time, even Luo Jiyun could only shout out, "Be careful," but he could not save her in time. This streak of light shot towards Murong and I and went by her cheek just by a bit as it blazed its way beyond her. It landed 10 meters away on a towering tree behind her, and there was a huge explosion. The explosive power was gaping. A huge tree which the entire circumference needed 10 people to join hands to go around it, its top was blown into smithereens just like that. Everyone looked at this scene with a stunned expression. That tree seems to be renowned for its hardness, the crimson rose fir, yes, and looking at its circumference, it looks to be about thousands of years old. The older the crimson rose fir, the tougher and harder it is. Damn. Even that could blow a hole in it. If it was a person, wouldn't that just be the end? This should be an unusual kind of flame. Well, one must still be able to hit the target first. However, looking at that terrifying speed just now, any cultivators below the 5th realm can forget about avoiding it. You can also listen on. In a few mere moments, everyone's gaze towards Huang Yueli were filled with awe. Murong and I was so scared that she had lost all color on her face. When that streak of light was shot in her direction, she really could not react in time, and there was no time to even put up any form of defense. If it had hit her instead, she would be reduced to a pile of ashes by now. Just thinking on this point, Murong Ni's entire back was drenched in cold sweat. Yo, Yuli, you actually, she was talking incoherently with trepidation, stuttering as she tried to speak. Huang Yueli slowly straightened her back and kept all the remaining armaments away before she cast a side glance towards Murong and I. Oh, so sorry about just now. My hand slipped, hand slipped, hand slipped, hand slipped. Everyone looked at her as a drop of cold sweat trickled down. Dear future sister-in-law, mistress, when you are looking for an excuse, could you not be so perfunctory? If your hand slipped, would it be so accurate to have brushed past Murong Ni's face so closely? If her hand slipped, she could still blow off half of an aged crimson rose fir. What if her hands had not slipped then? Murong and I also heard her perfunctory excuse and was pissed off, but even thought she was boiling inside. Having experienced all that just now, she really did not dare say anything out now. Huang Yueli walked past her but stopped momentarily as she coldly said, "Do you think that I need to rely on Li Moying as a backing? You are wrong, the one who wants to rely on him as a backing is you instead. I've spared you on his account, but since he isn't here now, it seems that maybe I don't need to think so much on behalf of him." Murong and I quivered and shook like a willow. Thinking back on this fox demoness performance over the past few days, and her resolute strike just now, she could not help but feel scared. Huang Yueli no longer said anything and strode forward to the front of the team. This path that they were on was a long way and they had to be careful to avoid various magical beasts on the way. That was why they could only travel during the day and set up camp early to prepare for night and hide within the array that she had laid. Hence, they took very long to walk along this path. Taking about 5 days, they had finally reached the marked point on the map that Moe held on to. That's great. Just looking over from this point, we are able to see the white glow of the veins. It looks like we just need another half a day's time and we would reach. Luo Jiyun happily said. Huang Yueli nodded her head. That's right, we are already very close. However, there are numerous magical beasts surrounding such veins, we still have to proceed carefully. Let's stay here for the night and set off early tomorrow. No one else had any other opinions and they started to set up the tents. Only Moe was still holding on to the map, his face fraught with worry. Huang Yueli walked over and asked him, Big brother Moe, is anything the matter? Moe hesitated for a moment before he continued on, I am worried about the master. Huang Yueli blinked and said, Li Moying's strength, you should know the best. Just a few 6-tier magical beasts are just like appetizers to him. There's no need to react like that, Moe replied, if there is plenty of time, naturally I have nothing to worry about. The problem is that, now, we are reaching, anyway, there's not much time for master. If he does not reach the profound lunar jade veins in time, things would be bad. What do you mean by that? What matter does he have that's so urgent? Huang Yueli asked in astonishment. You can also listen on. Moe was even more surprised than her. What? You mean you don't know? Oh. What is it? Huang Yueli's eyes widened in curiosity. Moe's face was filled with regret as he waved his hands, since master did not mention it to you then, that, take it as I haven't said anything. Hey! How could you be like this? Quick! Say everything clearly. Huang Yueli pestered on. However, Moe felt that he had spoken out of place, shook his head vehemently and no longer dared to continue on this conversation. Huang Yueli tried to pry more information out of his mouth for some time but Moe's mouth seemed to have been securely latched on with a lock and wouldn't spill anything. In the end, Huang Yueli could only glare at him hatefully. Big brother Moe, you are too much. What I hate most are those people who talk halfway. I'm going to curse you, next time when you eat an apple, you would eat up half a worm as well. Moe could only smile bitterly as he watched his future mistress walking away with a chest full of anger. When she heard Moe's words, Huang Yueli started to worry. Although he had not said things clearly, however she could understand that Li Moying had an urgent matter to take care of and there was also a time limit for it. Or else, how do you explain Moe's worry? He was one of the most trustworthy and reliable subordinate of Li Moying and to have him show such an expression showed that things were grave. Now, would Li Moying make it in time? Of those 7 days, 5 had already passed. Although the 6 of them had taken slightly over 5 days, but they had taken the safer path, unlike Li Moying who had ventured straight into the lairs of the 6-tier magical beasts all alone. If things were going smoothly, 5 days was more than enough for him to hunt and catch up with them. However, there was still no sign of him. The early next morning, they had all risen early and headed towards the vein. As they could already see the facade of the vein, everyone sped up and by noon, they had already reached the foot of the mountain. Luo Jiyun looked up upon the majestic mountain and exclaimed, Wow! This spirit jade vein doesn't look very small. If we dig it all out, we can make a small fortune. Keep on wishing. Huang Yueli retorted back, it takes at least several hundred years to mine such a large vein and to do that, you need to utilize a large number of people. This is the inner region of the Dark Moon Forest. In such an area, tell me where can you find so many people to mine? Besides, don't just look on the appearance. It may seem large, but in fact, 9 out of 10 are low-grade spirit stones and only a small portion are the valuable spirit jades, so it's not worth it. Spirit stones were stones which contained heaven and earth profound chi. Not only could they be used for cultivation, it was also the most commonly used currency among cultivators. Ordinary people and those with low cultivation levels like to use gold and silver for trade, but for cultivators, a third-grade armament may cost 900,000 taels of gold. What's more, a fourth or fifth-grade armament? How much would those cost then? If they were to trade based on gold, the whole demand and supply would lose its equilibrium. Not only that, there might not even have enough gold in the entire continent to make the numbers. That was why, for trades that were priced so exorbitantly, there were other currency substitutes and spirit stones were one of them. Low-grade spirit stones were equivalent to 10 taels of gold, while medium-grade spirit stones were worth 100 taels of gold and high-grade spirit stones were worth 1,000 taels of gold. On the other hand, spirit jade contained thousands more times the amount of heaven and earth profound chi. Naturally, its worth was also much higher. One piece of spirit jade was worth 1,000 high-grade spirit stones. Of course, to an ordinary person, low-grade spirit stones were already worth a lot of money, hence if a huge mine of low-grade spirit tones if exchanged for gold was also worth tens of millions. You can also listen on. However, for cultivators such as Luo Jiyun who had come from the large sects, such a small amount of money was negligible. Adding on to the fact that operating mining veins was a huge hassle. Moreover, this vein was located so deep into the forest, and on top of that, it was in the territory of fifth-tiered magical beasts. Lower-leveled cultivators would not be able to make it here. That was why this place was left untouched. After hearing her explanation, Luo Jiyun had on a dejected expression. Oh, all right, just when I was thinking that I could make some money. He was pretty poor, he needed a lot of resources for his cultivation, however, he was neither an armament master or an array master, hence he could not earn money this way. He was also not as capable as Li Moying. After entering secret realms, he could come out with full pockets of treasures. That was why he had been living very frugally. Huang Yueli laughed and spoke in a secretive manner. Actually, every vein would definitely have one jade quintessence. That is the one that's worth the most money. Once we've finished our business, I'll take you to look for it. Jade quintessence. Is that even worth more than a high-quality spirit jade? Luo Jiyun asked spiritedly. That's for sure. She laughed and replied, Jade quintessence has the ability to transform the surrounding stones to spirit stones and spirit jades. The formation of the vein is formed precisely from that piece of jade quintessence. It takes tens of millions of years to form and slowly transform the surrounding stones. With the jade quintessence, do you still have to worry about not having enough spirit stones to spend? Wow! There's actually such a good thing. Luo Jiyun was excited and he even started to follow her behind and flattered her continuously. Dear smart and beautiful sister-in-law, please hurry and bring me to find the jade quintessence. This life I shall be at your beck and call. This moment, Murong and I felt the scene in front of her very glaring. Although Luo Jiyun was a goody two-shoes and he was very nice to everyone in the sect, however, he had pampered her the most. Now, everything is just great. Even he had defected to that fox demoness side. Murong and I hatefully looked around as her mind was working at incredible speed to think of ideas when there was a sudden epiphany. Hadn't Moe been saying that senior brother had an urgent matter and he was in a hurry? If she could be the first to find that profound lunar jade before senior brother returns, wouldn't that save him lots of time? This way, he would think that she was thoughtful and considerate and may look at her differently. With this thought in mind, she kept thinking, and the more she thought about it, the more convinced she became. It looked like that Yuli didn't even care about senior brother's matters, and he had only instructed them to let her keep the materials. If she could find the profound lunar jade, she would definitely stand out. Senior brother would then know who was the one that truly cared about him. Murong and I was very happy at the thought when she suddenly stood up and walked towards the direction of the vein. The rest were all sitting around, listening to Huang Yueli introduce and explain various armaments. No one had noticed that Murong and I had ventured off alone in the direction of the vein. Only when Moer was about to prepare lunch then everyone had noticed that the party was short of one person. Where is Miss Murong? I don't know, I last saw her resting by that tree. How did she disappear in the blink of an eye? Everyone dispersed and searched for her in the vicinity. Murong and I. Murong and I. Miss Murong. Junior sister. Where are you? However, it was to no avail, everyone had already combed the vicinity and there was not a shadow in sight. When everyone gathered together, their faces were solemn, their expressions grim. You can also listen on. Nothing. I don't have anything here either. Same here, nothing. Everyone discussed their findings and ended up without any clues. Could it be that Miss Murong met with an accident? There are still some magical beasts lurking about nearby, although the map states that it is a relatively safe region, but accidents may still happen. However, if she was attacked and taken by magical beasts, there should still be some form of struggle. No matter what, she is a cultivator of the fourth realm. How could she disappear without crying for help? In the entire group, the one that was most nervous was Luo Jiyun. Murong and I was brought here by him. Moreover, now that senior brother isn't around, it was his responsibility to protect her. If anything untoward had happened to her, how could he explain it to his master? No, I have to go look for her. The more he thought about it, the more anxious he was, and he almost stumbled when he stood up. Wait a minute, what are you in such a hurry for? Do you know which direction to search for? Without any leads, searching aimlessly would only delay our time. Hearing her words, he stopped in his tracks, but his face was filled with anxiety. Then what should we do? Huang Yueli looked at him and replied, Young man, with such an impetuous temper and yelling out in such exasperation will do you no good. Am I not thinking of a way now? She was much younger than Luo Jiyun and she still had some childlike semblance that had yet to mature, so speaking like a wise and older person was quite a funny sight. However, at this time, no one noticed this and all of them anxiously urged her. Third Miss, have you thought of something? Sister-in-law, just say it already. Don't drag it out any longer, the suspense is killing me. Huang Yueli smiled and said, When we stopped to rest, I had already arranged a beast diversion array. That trunk that Murong and I was resting on was also within it. Although I can't guarantee that my array can block all magical beasts, but if a magical beast enters it, I would definitely know. Moe frowned. Third Miss, you mean, so, it is safe to say that Murong and I was not taken away by a magical beast, but instead, she had left the array in her own accord. What? Luo Jiyun was taken aback. Why would she take such a huge risk by leaving the array? What does she want to do? Huang Yueli sprawled out the map in front of her and tapped on a few locations as she started contemplating deeply. Well, I'm not her, how would I know what's going in that head of hers? I can only make a rough guess. This is her first time to Dark Moon Forest, so she wouldn't run around on her own without any aim. So the most plausible reason would be that she had entered the spirit jade vein. What? That can't be true. We are going to enter it either way and very soon to boot. Why would she run in on her own? That's right, that shouldn't be the case. The spirit jade vein is so close, but it's guarded by many magical beasts. Isn't it just seeking her own death if she heads in herself? Huang Yueli replied, however, this has the highest possibility. She didn't seem like she was going to run home alone. As for why she did this, would most probably be that she wanted to look for the jade quintessence herself to seek fortune, or it could be that she wanted to help Li Moying's search for the profound lunar jade. Well, who knows? Huang Yueli had actually guessed 80% of the truth. However, the others still found it hard to believe because they couldn't understand how could anyone be so stupid. However, because there wasn't any other leads, they all unanimously decided to first head into the spirit jade vein to search for more clues. You can also listen on. The 6 of them rushed off in the direction of the spirit jade vein without even having lunch. Originally, they hadn't planned to enter the area surrounding the spirit jade vein. It was because they knew that the nearer they got to the vein, the more magical beasts there were. The heaven and earth profound chi in which the spirit jade vein emitted was not only beneficial to human cultivators, they were also very important to magical beasts. Just by cultivating close to the spirit jade vein, one's cultivation speed would already increase. That was why, anywhere within the radius of 3 miles from the vein would be the most dangerous place. This was where most of the 5th-tier magical beasts were most active. Since the beginning, Li Moying had already agreed with them that they were to rendezvous at the outer perimeter and would only enter the inner region when he had joined the party, and they would then enter the vein together. Who knew? Murong and I had suddenly disappeared and they had to bring forward the plan and enter first. Moe was still feeling a little apprehensive as he spoke out. I think it's still better that we do not enter the 3-mile radius. The most we can go would be just at the border of it. Anyway, if Miss Murong really went there, she wouldn't be able to travel so fast as well. If she had really traversed this path, we should be able to pick up her tracks along the way and find her from the trail. Everyone nodded her head in unison and picked up their speed as they headed carefully towards the vein. Just as they were about to enter the radius of 4 miles, Huang Yueli suddenly called out. That pink piece of cloth over there looks very familiar, what? Luo Jiyun's gaze followed the direction in which her finger pointed to and all color drained from his face. Oh no! That belongs to junior sister and it's been torn to this extent. It looks like she really headed in this direction towards the vein, and it looks like she's met with some trouble. Huang Yueli furrowed her brows and exchanged glances with Moe. It was at this moment when there was a sudden shrill cry of help. Help! Help me! Boo-hoo-hoo, 5th brother, big brother Moe, help me! It's junior sister. Miss Murong. Everyone's complexion changed when they heard that cry for help. Luo Jiyun, Moe, and Mo Air immediately flew out like arrows in their fastest speeds in the direction of the voice. Only Mo San stayed behind to protect Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli knitted her brows and stayed at her current position. Murong and I really knew how to stir trouble. Seriously, if anything untoward happened to her, she could only blame herself. Moreover, Huang Yueli's current strength could not help much and would only drag everyone down, hence she didn't have any notions to act as a hero and join in the fray. However, after waiting for more than half an hour at the same spot, there still wasn't any sign of anyone returning. There was only distant sounds of weapons clashing, fighting, and beast cries from afar. Huang Yueli concentrated and listened to the sounds, trying to discern the situation. Suddenly, her expression turned grave and anxious as she quickly called Mo San, not good. It seems like they are in trouble. Let's go over and have a look. After saying, she sprinted over. 3rd miss. Wait. Mo San could not stop her in time and could only chase her from behind. Huang Yueli's face was solemn. It was because she had used her consciousness to explore the situation. However, in the midst of the chi fluctuations, she had picked out a barely audible unique sound. It was a very high-pitched sound that could not be heard by the human ear. It was a very dangerous signal that this particular magical beast uses to summon its companions. She had also encountered this type of magical beast in her previous life. At that time, she was already in the 7th realm and yet she had almost forfeited her life there and then. Third miss, don't be so rash. Moe and the rest wouldn't have much issues facing 5th-tiered magical beasts. Don't worry, after much difficulty, Mo-san had finally caught up with her. He was standing behind her, but when he raised his head to look up, his whole body froze and his mouth fell wide open. You can also listen on. In the vast sky above, there was a huge cloud of flying magical beasts. Their body resembled a bear with a thick coat of fur, however, they each had a black pair of delicate wings like a cicada's. With their wings spread out, each wingspan was at least 40 meters long. What was more scary was that this type of magical beast had a blood-red pair of eyes and a long creepy tongue that was equally red. Just one look at this ghastly beast would make all hair stand on one's back. That's scarlet-eyed blood bats. Although Huang Yueli could calmly say the name out, however, in her heart she felt tremendous pressure. Scarlet-eyed blood bats, also a 5th-tiered magical beast, but they were extremely dangerous. Even for cultivators in the 7th realm, they may not be able to handle them all and would try to avoid them at all costs. Generally, the scarlet-eyed blood bats inhabited in caves, but they lived in colonies and each cave had at least a few thousands of them. As long as any one of them is provoked, the entire cave of them would awaken and they would not stop but continue to seek more companions as they chased down and pursued the prey relentlessly. However, the most frightening thing about these magical beasts was their means of hunting. After biting down on the prey, they would suck out all their blood immediately, leaving just an empty and dried corpse. Facing them now was exactly a large cloud of these blood-sucking beasts. Moe, Mo-er and Luo Jian had already tried their best and killed a few scarlet-eyed blood bats, but there were simply too many of them. The entire sky was blotted out by them in one massive black cloud. The few of them fought and tried to pave a path for retreat as they tried to rush back into the forest. Huang Yueli hatefully spat out under her breath, "Damn Murong and I," before she rushed out. When she was about a mile away from them, she raised her right hand and 3 balls of thunder flame shot out in the direction of the scarlet-eyed blood bats. Boom! 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 The 3 balls of thunder flame exploded in a series of continuous explosion. The destructive force was massive as the sky was lit ablaze as dozens of scarlet-eyed blood bats caught fire. They screeched and fell onto the ground as burning balls of fire. This thunder flame ball of mine is worth lots of money. This time I've used 3 in succession. Humph. Murong and I, be prepared to go bankrupt. Huang Yueli looked afar at the burning ground and her heart ached. Not only were these thunder flame balls 5th-tiered, but the reason behind its powerful explosive force was that these were imbued with true phoenix flame. If they're to be auctioned out, each thunder flame ball could easily fetch 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. Thanks to this short break, Moe and the rest could finally catch their breaths as they protected Murong and I and made a mad dash for safety. Huang Yueli shouted out loud, "Don't go into the forest. Head there instead." She was pointing towards a bare mountain cave in the distance and immediately ran towards it. Things were too sudden and she had no time to explain. Normally, being chased by a massive cloud of flying magical beasts, people's first reaction would be to seek shelter from the forest. With the foliage and towering trees to shield them from the prying eyes above, they would feel that they would have a large chance to escape and that would be the safest bet. Well, for normal flying magical beasts, yes. However, this would be the opposite for the scarlet-eyed blood bats. That was because they did not rely on their sight to hunt down their prey. They actually relied on echolocation, using ultrasounds to track and locate their prey. Most people did not know this fact, and once they've reached the forest, the scarlet-eyed blood bats are not the least bit affected by the change. However, it was the humans that can't see the impending danger and the situation outside. Very quickly, they would fall prey to a sneak attack. What's worse, they didn't even know how they died. You can also listen on. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.